Hi, Zach Reiser here, and welcome back to another bass effects review video. Today I am getting into the Doom 2 from 3-Leaf Audio. As the name would imply, the Doom 2 is sort of a sequel to the Your Doom pedal from 3-Leaf Audio, but Spencer has added some very key features in this new model. And in my opinion, even though this seems on paper like an octave up fuzz pedal, this is really one of the synthiest and most dynamic fuzzes I've ever had the pleasure of playing. Let's get right into it. Here's my bass's dry tone Dingwall ABZ 6-string on the neck pickup. So the Doom 2, unlike the Doom 1, has two very different fuzzes built in. It has the original kind of Your Doom sound, which is the Your switch in the up position, and that's that super harmonically rich kind of octave up sound. But when you click it in the down position, you get a much fatter, bigger, more traditional bass fuzz. I have now maxed out the gain and I'm scooping out some of the mid frequencies here. Let's hear the Doom a little bit with a pick. I have boosted the mid frequencies and I've rolled in some clean signal, and I'll talk more about that clean blend here in a minute. The only control I haven't really touched yet in regards to this particular fuzz setting is the treble knob, and the treble knob is simply just a high frequency roll off. I personally like this thing basically wide open all the time, but just to give you an idea, I'll just kind of roll the treble knob a little bit here so you can hear what it's doing. Even though this particular fuzz setting is considered the more traditional fuzz setting, it is still a killer sounding synthy fuzz when you combine it with an octaver. So as usual, this is my Boss OC2 with just the sub signal. Sounds like this by itself. And now I'm going to run it into this kind of more traditional fuzz setting on the Doom 2. So I've clicked the Your switch into the up position, which is a very harmonically rich kind of octave up style fuzz. I want to show it off completely by itself, so no clean signal blended in at all to begin with. So as you probably noticed in that take, I do lose a bit of low end in this particular fuzz setting, but we will take care of that in a second with the lovely clean blend that Spencer designed for this pedal. But what I want you to take careful note of from here on out in the rest of the video and in the last clip is how unbelievably dynamically responsive this fuzz pedal is. I have never played a fuzz that keeps my dynamics this much, and it also changes as much depending on how hard I'm plucking. It really sounds like a completely different fuzz depending on if I'm palm muting, playing with a pick, playing loud, playing soft, etc. So the Doom 2's clean blend is beautiful. It solves one of the most annoying things to me about every clean blend on every fuzz pedal I've ever used, and that's that for me personally, I do not like the sound of 100% dry bass blended in with a super saturated fuzz. It sounds really disjointed. It sounds like two completely separate sound sources just smashed together. But I do hate that many fuzz pedals lose low end, so I need to use that clean blend. But what Spencer's done here is he gives you that option, if that's your thing, but you also can click the switch to the bass setting. And now what I'm doing is rolling in just clean low end. So I get all of that nice fat low end back, but it doesn't sound like my clean bass with a fuzz. It just sounds like a fat fuzz, and I'll show you that now. So again, here is the Doom 2 with no clean blended in at all. As you can hear, it sounds kind of thin and anemic. So let's roll in some clean blend in the traditional way. So this is kind of a full frequency, my whole bass rolled in. And as you can hear, it sounds fuller and fatter, but it has that issue to me where it's just my bass with some fuzz kind of thrown on top of it. Let's take the clean switch to the bass setting. And yet again, now this is keeping all of my clean low end, but it's taking away all the clean mid-range and treble. So hopefully you can hear that with just the low end, you get this super cohesive sound. It doesn't sound like two separate sound sources anymore. It just sounds like an octave up fuzz with a big low end, which is something I've wanted for a very long time. So for the rest of the video, I am pretty much going to leave the clean switch on the bass setting because that's what I massively prefer. But at any time, if you wanted, you of course could click it down to a more traditional clean blend if that's your thing. All right, so now that we got our nice big low end back, let's run through just kind of the general gain options with this octave up style fuzz. I have the mid set flat and the treble full open, and I'm going to try to show a little bit of palm muting and a little bit of open playing so that you can hear the difference in the character of the fuzz at the different gain ranges. The other thing that's very unique about this particular octave up circuit is, especially on bass, a lot of octave up fuzzes give you a very subtle upper octave, but when you get up high on the neck, this thing is straight up an upper octave, and it sounds pretty freaking rad. So I'm going to straight up say this right now. The Doom 2 is the synthiest fuzz pedal I have ever played. The caveat to that, what I mean by that is that it actually sounds the closest to a real analog monosynth. There are tons of fuzz pedals out there that when you combine them with octaves and filters sound super funky and super synthy, but I've never heard one that actually nails the vibe of a real analog synth as much as the Doom 2. And I'm going to try to show that off now. So starting simple, I'm going to take my subsignal from my Boss OC2 and run it into these particular settings on the Doom 2. And to me, this gets you kind of almost like an ARP Odyssey vibe or certain Moog vibes, just by itself. So let's increase the synthiness a little bit. I'm going to add kind of a doubling or chorusing effect from my Boss DC2W. Switching to the funkier side of the synth world, I have turned on my Moog MF101 low-pass filter on a super snappy 4-pole envelope. It sounds like this by itself. And now let's kind of get our full synth voice by running the Boss OC2 into the Doom 2 into the filter. So I've shown some of the more traditional bass synth sounds that the Doom 2 can do, but it also excels at synth lead tones. So let's get into those a bit now. So I've always wanted to be able to emulate that kind of slow envelope sawtooth sound you get on a lot of analog synths. And I'm getting pretty close with the Doom 2 here. I'm starting with a rather unusual effect though. It's off my Electro Harmonix Hog 2, and it's kind of a slow attack, but it's rolled off all the high end. So by itself, it sounds like this. And now I'm going to run that into the Doom 2. So you can hear it's already very brassy, very synth-like. But now let's add that Boss DC2W back for some chorusing, and I'm going to put on a nice thick kind of tape delay on the Strymon Volante. I couldn't resist. So now switching to a more kind of in-your-face lead tone. I've turned off the hog, I've turned off that chorus, but I have turned my Moog low-pass filter back on, but I'm controlling the cutoff frequency with my foot. So this is just the Doom 2 into the Moog, into the Strymon Volante. So far, all the synthy textures I've shown have been pretty smooth and pretty silky. So I want to show that if you run something a little bit more interesting into the Doom 2, it can get pretty nasty. So I have a very unique preset on the Hog 2. It is a little bit of low octave, a little bit of octave plus a fifth, and a bit of dry signal. And yet again, I've rolled most of the high end off, so it's kind of a pseudo organish sounding thing. It sounds like this by itself. So now let's try running that into the Doom 2 and see what happens. So I want to do one more sound sample for you here, and I want to build this one up from the bottom again so that you can hear all of the components. So we're going to start with just the Boss OC2 by itself. And then we're going to add the Doom 2 on top of that. And then we're going to fatten it up with that Boss DC2W chorus. And then finally, we're going to add the Moog filter back on and put a little bit of delay at the end. So that is my demo of the Doom 2 from 3-Leaf Audio. I'm loving this thing, and if you get it, I thoroughly encourage you to combine it with all of your other pedals and see what happens. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe below. It really does help me out, and as usual, I'll be back shortly with more pedals and effects reviews as well as some performance videos. Thank you so much for watching.